Portia, welcome. Great to have this opportunity to chat to you more about the Property Sector Charter Council. What is the role that you play within this sector?
No, thank you so much for inviting us. We're delighted and honored to be part of the show. So the Property Sector Charter Council, what it does, it really drives meaningful transformation of the previously disadvantaged to play in the mainstream periphery of the property sector code.
Sure, and how are you doing that? How are you driving transformation?
So we do it through the legislation. So we develop a legislation as the property sector. So there's a scope through who participate in the property sector. So we obviously craft our scope. And then within that, we develop a legislation. That legislation will then identify the elements we participate. But over and above identifying the elements is the targets that we want to achieve as a sector that we set for ourselves with the guidance, obviously, of the base legislation, which is the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act.
Sure, and is this still relevant, transformation for the property sector in terms of the targets, in terms of what has been achieved to date?
Oh, absolutely relevant, absolutely, without a doubt. It is more relevant now than even ever before, because more and more as we measure the state of transformation, you start to recognize where we're doing well, where we're not doing so well. And actually, as we always say, it's not even so much sometimes the performance or where you are that's actually key, but rather how you close the gap between what you've achieved against where you should be, which is probably more critical, because that's exactly what will get you to where you want to be.
Is the sector, what I want to gauge, is the sector working hard to close the gap? Is there enough commitment within the property sector in South Africa to meet those targets?
Well, I must say, it's a good question, but very difficult to answer generically overall. So some sectors are doing well, some sectors are not doing so well, sub-segments as a matter of fact. So you find that you've got commercial industry that is actually putting effort in trying to actually drive transformation. On the other hand, you've got residential, where you're seeing not as much effort within the residential sub-segment that is not achieving a lot of what you can do. And that's exactly possibly where we would like to see a lot of that transformation. So it's very difficult to generalize in overall, but really in sub-segments, it's even better for us to actually be able to explain in terms of, who's achieving what and where and under what areas and under which context.
Sure. Again, another very broad question for you, but a relevant one, because we still have this conversation in South Africa in terms of broad-based black economic empowerment, really empowering black people. Is it empowering, or is it still being used as an opportunity, as a front to ensure that businesses get lucrative deals?
Well, it's actually, one, it is black economic empowerment. So it is, and if implemented properly, it's supposed to actually touch everyone. And there's a pyramid that we use. At the very brink of the economy, you've got employment equity and you've got socio-economic development, which actually is supposed to actually support the second economy, which is that people that are not necessarily do not have formal education, if you start to actually put them into the employment stream, they start to earn income. And also you get socio-economic development. For ease of words, a lot of people refer to it as CSI, where the people are supported by others. You give blankets, you give soup kitchens and so on. But at the next level, you then have skill development, which is supposed to touch on the graduates, the artisans, the unemployed but literal people in our country. The next level is supposed to support the self-employed, small, medium enterprises. And at the brink of our economy, you're supposed to get ownership and people that sit on the board, people that supposed to support the direction of the organization. So if employed properly, it touches literally every single one throughout the brain.
And having said that, are you inspired as the property charter by Mayor Mashaba's vision of releasing the 71 properties to private developers?
I'm absolutely inspired, and let me explain why. One is that the fact that they considered that BEE also plays a part in the 71 properties. That is quite quite welcomed by the property charter. That is one. But also the bigger vision of why the city of Joburg is doing this is they're rejuvenating the city.
Yeah.
So part of rejuvenating the city is also taking back all of the properties that are currently, sometimes they are invaded, and you know, they are creating the instability in the city,
And they're left in
the
neglect.
unsafetyness in the
crime
city.
element comes in, all of
Correct.
that.
So once you actually take back and you give it to proper owners that will properly own it, then it starts to bring back the life into the city. But also, more importantly, it's also creating an inclusive city. So not only creating, so it starts to stitch what they call spatial transformation. You know, in the past, you would have the township is like, oh, black people, you live in that area, you only work, we only in Sandton, we only have that area, you can travel all the 45 kilometers every day to come to this area. But when you start to actually create an opportunity for social development, it starts to stitch the city in
And
terms of
unstitch the past.
unstitch the past and stitch what you have. So you have people that are able to work, live, and play within the areas in which they participate. So the idea of the 71 properties, and one of the major focus of those properties, is to create social housing. So you'll find that you're going to have a lot of rental units for between the range of 800 and 1,000 that anybody and everybody can participate, can own and live in the city and be able to walk to their workplace, as opposed to spending 60% of your salary in the transport, traveling so many hours, waking up so many hours much earlier, and getting to work. By the time you get there to work, you've already spent 3-4 hours on the road already. So it's supposed to stitch the city in that way, create inclusiveness within the city, rejuvenate, also create stock in terms of affordable housing.
Yeah, well, it certainly makes sense also to provide that accommodation to students.
Yes, student accommodation is also one of the key components as well of those affordable housing. And City of Joburg is actually fortunate in the sense that you've got also, there's a corridor of universities you can see. I mean, within the UJ, the Rao areas. So that's huge corridors where there's a concentration. Braamfontein is the other, where there's a concentration of institutions where it attracts itself to actually students. So they are fortunate to actually be able to have that precinct with a lot of universities around the areas. Not too many cities can actually claim that. So at the double take in terms of social housing and student accommodation, it's where the key and focus of these developments is going to be.